My life as a leader is frenetic. If you're like me, you have a hard time juggling all of the things that come at you on a daily basis, deciding whether it's worth your time, whether you should schedule a meeting or more time later to do this, whether you should delegate this thing or just not even address it altogether. In this video, we're going to talk about the time management matrix and how you can use it to 10x your value that you bring to your organization. The time management matrix is widely attributed to Dwight D. Eisenhower. Dwight D. Eisenhower was the supreme commander of Allied forces during World War II, which he won, by the way. He also later became the 34th president of the United States of America, serving from 1953 to 1961. So if anybody knows what it's like to have way too much to do and way too much that's thrown at you and way too much on your plate, it might be Dwight D. Eisenhower. So the true insight here is that he said, urgent tasks are probably not important and important tasks are probably not urgent. The other person that's widely associated with this concept is Stephen R. Covey in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, which I actually read in college. I've got a copy at home. And I've read the book like 3 or 4 times. It's got markings all over it and notes on inside of it. I've linked that book in the description. If you haven't read it and you want to get more work done and be more successful and more effective, I highly recommend that book. It's a classic. It's been around for decades now. So what is Eisenhower's insight and how is it helping me be a more effective leader and bring more value to my organization? To make this video as effective as possible, what I want you to do is pause the video. Yes, stop eating guacamole on the couch. Pause this video and think about a bunch of tasks that you know that you're going to have to do this week or in this quarter, or things that you just routinely do, okay? Not even things that you routinely do, just all of the things that you do in your position as a leader. So pause the video. I'm going to do this as well. Think about those things, and then we'll come back. So the Eisenhower's matrix, or this time management matrix, is a matrix with 4 quadrants. The quadrants go from, on the upper right quadrant is not urgent and important. The upper left quadrant is both urgent and important. The bottom left quadrant is urgent but not important. And then the bottom right quadrant is both not urgent and not important. The way to use this time management matrix, the way I use it, is that you need to, as a leader, you need to spend time in quadrant 1 and quadrant 2. So quadrant 1, as we said, is both urgent and important. These things are important enough that they need your attention, and they're urgent that they need to be done right now or in the near future. Quadrant 2 is not urgent but important. So these are things that are very important for the success of your organization and your success, but they're not urgent. So these are things that you need to do, but you might need to schedule them, or you might need to do them over time. And I would say that as a leader, you need to really focus on getting the maximum amount of value from your time by spending more time in quadrant 2, doing those things that would be in quadrant 2. Quadrant 3 are things that you need to delegate. So these things are urgent, but they're not important. We'll provide examples for all of these from my own work in just a couple seconds. And then quadrant 4 is eliminate. So these are things that are both not important and not urgent. If you wrote anything down on your list that is both not important and not urgent, then you need to be brutal and you need to be honest with yourself, and you need to get rid of these things and save time and energy for yourself, so that you can spend more time in quadrant 2 or quadrant 1 and provide more value to your organization. I went through this exercise recently, and although I didn't find a lot of things that were in quadrant 4, there were things that I had in quadrant 1 or quadrant 2, which really probably should be in quadrant 3, which means I need to delegate those things and again spend more time in quadrant 1 and quadrant 2, really bringing more value to my organization. So how can we use the time management matrix to actually bring more value to our organization by either doing things, scheduling them, or delegating them, or just eliminating them? So we're just going to go through some examples from my own work very quick. It'll help you understand better the differences between quadrant 1 and quadrant 2, which is where you need to spend your time, and quadrant 3 and 4. Before we look at those examples from my work, I think it's important to talk about how I characterize important tasks and urgent tasks. So what makes something important versus not important? For me, it's how much value that activity or task will bring to the organization. The more value that thing brings to the organization, the more important it is. Now, we're looking at this as a dichotomy. It's either important or not important. And there's ways you can be more sophisticated about this, so you could have a bigger scale than just on or off. But it's really how much value is that activity bringing to the organization. And then for urgent versus non-urgent, I look at this as, what are the consequences of not doing this thing at the deadline, right, that is required? So if there's an emergency and we don't handle this thing in a timely manner, how much downside is there to this? What are the consequences for not getting this thing done? That's whether something is really urgent or not urgent. I just wrote down some things that I do or am going to do in my role. Setting an annual budget for operations of my organization. This is definitely quadrant 2. So this is a very leadership kind of thing to do. It's really important for planning, at least in my organization. It's a time to sit and think about what it is that you need to achieve over the next year and what the resources are that you're going to need. This is definitely quadrant 2. So it's very important, but it's not urgent. Something that you either need to spend time doing over time, or you need to schedule a time to do it in the future. Number 2, didn't just happen to me, but this did happen to me in the past. A member of my team was traveling for work and was kicked out of a hotel, and the police were notified. This is definitely a quadrant 1 activity. This is both urgent and important. This could have very dire consequences for you as a leader, but also for your organization. Your organization could be brought into a bad light in that community or even nationally. So this is something you need to stop everything that you're doing. You can't delegate this. You can't forget about this. You can't schedule it. You need to deal with this right now as the leader. Number 3, spending time tonight or tomorrow listing all of the activities that you do in your work, and then putting the time management matrix in front of you and placing those things on the matrix. Okay, it's like a story within a story at this point. So this is something that I feel like is quadrant 2. It's something that is very strategic, something that can help you really identify what are the areas that you need to spend more time on, what are some things that you can delegate, and what are some things that possibly you could just eliminate altogether. I've got a really important quadrant 1 activity for you right now, and that is, if you're finding something useful in this video, you need to go down, hit the like button so that more people can get access to this. This is quadrant 1. This is urgent and important. You need to do this right now. Okay, number 4, a member of your team has been underperforming but has been mostly getting their work done. I see this as quadrant 2 activity. Nothing's on fire. It is very important, but it's not urgent. So it's something that you need to think about and strategize on with your upcoming weekly meetings and semi-annual evaluation and annual evaluation with this individual, so that you can bring that person's performance back up to your standard so the organization can be more successful. Okay, number 5, updating your handbook of operating procedures. Now, if you're like me, you might tend to think that this is something that you need to do, but this is urgent, but it's not important. So this is something that I should delegate. I tend to do this myself, but this is one that I found that I'm currently doing this typically, but it's really something that is quadrant 3 activity. It's urgent, but it's not important, and therefore I should have somebody else do this, and then I can just check off on their work. Okay, number 6, this has happened to me a few times in my career, and that is where an external entity in the community asks you to serve on their board. This, in my mind, could either be a quadrant 3 or a quadrant 4. So it could either be something that is deserving of your time because although it's not urgent, it's important, or it could be something that's both not urgent and not important. You really need to judge whether this activity will bring value to you and your organization, or whether it doesn't. And if it doesn't, then you probably just need to turn down this opportunity to sit on a board. Finally, number 7, reading and answering the general email inbox of the office. This is something that I do not do. This is a quadrant 3 activity. If you're currently doing this, then you need to have somebody else do this and screen those messages for you and have them forward you the ones that you really need to take care of as a leader. That is the time management matrix. I use it in my work. It's really helped me over the last couple months to kind of think about how I spend my time and how I can bring the most value to my organization and to my team. What I want you guys to do is to tonight or tomorrow, sit down, write down a bunch of things that you do or things that you need to do, and then put this matrix in front of you and place those items in the matrix. But I want you to really be honest and brutal. If something really is not urgent and not important, like if it's been on your to-do list for more than 6 months, you know, it's like that shirt in your closet that you haven't worn in 2 years. You probably just need to give that thing away. Let go of those tasks. Get those things off of your plate, either delegate them or just eliminate them altogether, and spend more time in quadrants 1 and 2 bringing real value to your organization. I upload videos frequently about my journey at trying to become a better leader, and I share those insights with you guys. If that's something that you're interested in, hit subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one.